Hi, folks. We're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the difference between quality of life and economic conditions, um, uh, such as standard of living versus quality of life, I guess. They intertwine in a number of ways, but they're also separate. For example, you may have a job that pays good money, and so you can live have the best of most things, but um, there's just nearby there's a high crime area or something like that, so you have to, because you need to live in the inner city, or so you've got a high crime neighborhood nearby, and that affects your quality of life. Whereas you may have less money, but you live in an area that's got zero crime. Therefore, your quality of life is on a relative basis, rather than absolutely on a relative basis, better, even though you have less money. So you can get those sort of trade-offs between quality of life and standard of living, and other trade-offs too. But I wanted to talk or focus particularly here on, let's suppose President Trump returns to the White House, and we can all hope very much that he does, if anything, to defeat the globalists, because the globalists are tearing our Western standard of living to pieces. We're losing democracy, we're losing the rule of law, we're losing due legal process, we're losing our standard of living, we're losing healthcare. I mean, there ain't nothing. We're in quality of life. It's all going down the gurgler, and the globalists have got much more in planned for us. The reduction in our standard of living and quality of life will be relentless until they've shared out, as they would see it, they've shared out jobs and wealth and everything more or less evenly around much of the globe. So the subsistence peasants in rural peasants, in literate peasant in fucking rural Pakistan, the globalist intention is that that peasant will have the same standard of living as someone who is in what was hitherto an all-white country and in an advanced industrial economy. So let's have a look at this. What's causing the reduction in our standard of living and quality of life, and if it was stopped and or reversed, what would the effects be? And the effects be fairly immediate. I mean, just in Australia, and the similarities with the US are substantial. Wherever the globalists are in control, they're in control across all the white Western democracies. And so the afflictions and penalties and sufferings that we're going through, give or take a small margin of error difference, about the same in all the white Western countries. So that's where the globalists are targeting the major transformations, in as much as inflicting the globalist project on us all. Now, if there's huge subsidies being supplied to the green energy, the very inefficient, very costly, very corrupt green energy industry in Australia and in the US as well, and elsewhere around the Western world. And these subsidies are being placed on the fossil fuel energy bills. So what would the cost of coal-fired electricity be if the subsidies for the green industry and other disincentives were taken off? So we'd be looking at something like a 60% reduction in the price of energy. Now, if you look at, say, the average household, what they're spending on energy, that's something like $3,000 a year that you'd save, more if the household was bigger. So it'd be $3,000 a year saving. Now, that's $60 a week, and in this climate, that's a decent amount of money for a lot of people. People on average wages and entry-level wages and so on, which is the majority of the population. So this $60 a week would be a game changer. Just that, just stopping the green madness would be the. Now, it doesn't mean that the technology might exist one day to go all solar or any. And when that technology exists, then fine, we can all use it. But until that time, and it won't be that far away, but until that time, then let's not screw over the penniless working class this fucking fantasia of saving the fucking planet. So anyway, so that would be it. Now let's look at stopping immigration or keeping immigration down to skilled people that speak good English. I'm talking about Australia now. Skilled people that speak good English and where those skills are needed. That would reduce immigration to about 20,000 a year adults. I mean, those adults may have children as well, but about 20,000 a year, give or take. And the requirement that they have to actually buy a new property or pay for the building of a new property before they come to Australia. Now that would immediately take huge pressure off the housing market and the rentals and it would just instantly almost, it would take it off. So there would be 500,000 fewer people, approximately 500, or say 420,000 fewer people looking for accommodation in Australia. And you know, I just want to give you a difference here. We're in areas with a heavy migrant population. Most properties aren't even getting up for rent. They're being exchanged between family, you know, migrant family members, between their cousins and their, you know, people from the tribe and all that sort of thing. So it's not even going up for rent, as in publicly advertised. It's simply being exchanged amongst the migrant group itself. Let's suppose it does get advertised as a property for rent, and it doesn't. It's not even on there for a week. You know, within a week, within days, the property is being rented. That's such as this is in inner city or high migrant population areas. Now let's look at you go outside a migrant population area. And by the way, the rent is usually they get more than they're even asking for. So if the rent's you know, I don't know, $700 a week or something, they're getting $750 because you can always get the migrants who'll pay more. They'll gather together as a tribe and a group, and they'll pay more for the rent. So that price is local people who've got one income or two incomes or whatever out of the marketplaces. These people come together and they might live 20 to a 2-bedroom apartment that's supposed to be illegal, and the council and the local government ordinances, things like that, should prevent it, but they just turn a blind eye and let it happen. It's meant to be illegal, and the real estates are meant to really sort of, to some extent, police this or not allow people to rent if they're going to be more than, you know, so many, 5 people or whatever to the apartment. But the real estates, they turn a blind eye as well, even though they could actually be held legally accountable for it. They don't care. And so on it goes. Now you look at an area that's got hardly any migrants, and you know, migrant population maybe you know, 5% or less, and then suddenly there's a dramatic change. It's between 8 and 10 weeks to rent. You know, I'm assuming the average sort of rental price here. You know, very expensive properties will of course take longer. The very cheap end will go quicker, but in terms of the median or the mid range, it's 8 to 10 weeks to rent, and typically the rents are being reduced in order to get a tenant, being reduced by 5% from the asking price. So a completely different scenario. Now imagine if that were to be replicated all over Australia, and suddenly those landlords were having to compete to get tenants. Then you'd see the prices drop quite substantially. But just as important, the inflation rate on rents, which is massive, would suddenly jump. You know, within 3 or 4 years, rents are more than doubling. That sort of, so that would disappear, and you'd find that trend, that upward trend, would not only stop, but it would reverse and go into reverse. And so it would be much harder for people to attract. Landlords and property owners to attract tenants, and they would have to offer better prices or more modern facilities and so on. So these would have, now if you just sort of translate that again into you know, pocketbook type, you know, we're already then just with the reduction in energy and the reduction in rents, stabilization and reduction in rents, then that's $160 a week that's being saved. Just in that. and the trend again will be downward. So $160, that's cash money. Now again, if you're on the average wage or a low wage, $160 a week saving, that's absolute game changing type numbers for people at that level. And that will improve their quality of life and standard of living. They get access to better health services. With fewer migrants. Like you go into an emergency room or casualty room and so on in a hospital, then you're lucky if anyone there speaks English, as in the people waiting for service. They all need interpreters. It takes forever for anything to be done, and so it's a difficult situation there, and so access to medical services. I took a relative there a couple of years ago, I guess, and this wasn't even in a downtown type hospital. It was in sort of middle outer suburb type area, and we arrived at about 5 o'clock, maybe 5:30 in the afternoon, and we didn't get out the place till 1 o'clock in the morning. That's how long it took. Lots of nice people coming up and apologizing. But part of the problem was people not speaking English, but also it was that the people in charge in the hospital, they'd gone full on politically correct. So there had to be the black woman in charge, and then there had to be the lesbians and second in charge. That they'd gone full political correctness and DEI and all that sort of stuff. And that made it harder as well. These people weren't competent. They were clearly struggling in the jobs they had, and they were mislaying paperwork. Oh, fuck, it was a schmozzle. So the pressure would come off that, and there'd be better access to medical services, which again would be a quality of life issue. So if President Trump were to come to office, all he has to do is do something about the energy, and the price of energy would come down, particularly electricity, that sort of stuff. The price of energy would come down sharply. Access to gas and coal-fired power and so on. That doesn't mean that people can't keep on researching new ways to improve solar, and there should be grants given to that's all fine. Nothing wrong with that. But should the cost of that green fantasia be inflicted on the working people? No, it shouldn't be. It should never have been. Nor should any politician ever have agreed with it or gone along with it. So that alone would change. And again, the effect on migration, and or the effect on rents from reducing migration. And by the way, migration is people that speak good English. They're skilled, they're qualified, they've got skills that are needed in the Western economies. And then fine, come here. There's nothing wrong with that. But the people they're bringing in all across the Western world aren't that. They're illiterate peasants in their own language. They've got no skills, nothing that's needed. They're just straight out peasant slave labor. And it's not and just by bringing out all these illiterate, low, cheap labor peasants, it's turned back the clock in terms of organizational development and efficiency and all the things or many of the things that separated the West from the rest of the world. That the drive for efficiency, effectiveness, quality of management and experience in management, organizational management, this sort of thing, all that's gone backwards. The organizational standard in most firms, certainly companies that we do business with, has gone into the crapper. It's gone backwards so far that it's hard to believe that companies that 25 years ago 30 years ago, you could hold up as the epitome of efficient, slick, high quality organization, hiring good quality people. They're now completely the opposite. The systems, the diversity, equity, and inclusion crowd have taken over. That's all they give a shit about now. If the poorest quality service is delivered to the customers, who gives a fuck? But if someone misgenders a trans person, then that's it. The whole company explodes into ideological rage, and all resources and energy are directed to that. That's how bad things are now, pretty much across the Western world. So that these sorts of things as well will reduce the cost of business, reduce the cost of goods and services, and improve the quality of goods and services, returning to merit. Outlawing, particularly here, outlawing racism against white people, outlawing the idea that you can give people jobs and promotions just because they're black lesbians. These are the sort of things that if they're applied will make a massive difference to the quality of life. I'd always sort of took the view as a younger guy that I may not like some of my bosses, or I may think they're assholes or something like that. But what I do consider is they were very good at their jobs, and they ensured that company did well, or the business did well, and we sold more products or sold more services, and did so at a profit, and did so efficiently and effectively, and that created more jobs than otherwise would be the case. Also, it protected those jobs in as much as the success of the company made sure that we all had jobs for the longer term, and we had better paid jobs and this sort of thing. And then in turn, more taxes were being paid, and which meant that social services for the less well-off, the less fortunate, were more numerous and substantial, and so on and so on. So having efficient, effective people at the top it may not be a fair society as much as, well, I want to have the prestige and the glory of that. Well, too fucking bad, but having the best people at the top will make us all richer and all better off as a consequence, assuming we think that we're all fellow citizens, of course. So there's, just by Trump coming into office, stopping the green fantasia, the nonsense, and stopping reducing the immigration to a point where only qualified people are coming in as migrants, then this will drastically alter the makeup. Now, on top of that, I'll add something else in quality of life and cost of living. Is the majority of people coming in from as migrants now are from horribly corrupt third world countries that have never known what it's like to have a job or to be a citizen. You're not a fellow citizen of anything. You're part of a family, corrupt family grouping, or a tribe, but they've got no concept of citizenship as we do in the West. So they run their parallel corrupt underground economies and societies and so on, and they tear away at the fabric, the once social cohesion and social trust fabric that these Western nations once had. So by stopping those coming and deporting them, then we'll return to a society of much higher social trust, and this in turn will translate into better economic outcomes and a higher quality of life. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.